In recent days, spaceflight has brought us several intriguing moments. In today's episode of our show, we'll highlight 3 of them. We'll start with the American company RocketLab, which is preparing the Neutron rocket and recently completed tests of its second stage. In the second topic, we'll head to Florida, where SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket launched. It carried 22 more Starlink communication satellites into orbit. We'll conclude this episode in China, where 3 Yaogan satellites were launched into orbit. In 2021, the American company RocketLab unveiled the Neutron rocket, which is designed to be larger and more powerful than their current Electron rockets. The Neutron rocket is expected to be capable of carrying 13 tons of payload into low Earth orbit, compared to the Electron's capacity of around 300 kilograms. One of the unique features of the Neutron rocket is that its aerodynamic fairing will be connected to the first stage. When it's necessary to release the upper stage with the payload, the fairing will open and then close again. This first stage and fairing assembly is intended to be reusable, similar to how SpaceX recovers the first stages of Falcon rockets. The first launch is planned for 2024, which is an ambitious goal. The Neutron rocket will incorporate some technologies derived from the Electron rocket, including a structure made from carbon composites. The video footage shows testing of the Neutron rocket's second stage, which is initially black due to its carbon composite construction. As the tanks are filled with liquid nitrogen, frost appears on its surface, giving it an all-white appearance. The Neutron rocket will use liquefied oxygen and methane in its tanks for actual launches. However, for this test, the company used liquefied nitrogen for safety reasons, as it doesn't pose an explosion risk. This test was intentionally destructive. RocketLab pressurized the tanks of the Neutron rocket's upper stage until they ruptured. Cameras in the vicinity closely monitored the entire test, and the stage was equipped with various sensors. The data obtained will help engineers better understand the behavior of the structure under extreme conditions. On October 5th, SpaceX achieved its 70th launch of 2023. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from launch pad SLC-40 in Florida at 5:36 Universal Time.
And liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
The launch had to be delayed several times due to unfavorable weather conditions. However, SpaceX managed to find a suitable window when conditions improved enough to proceed. The Starlink 6-21 mission carried 22 Starlink second-generation mini-satellites into orbit. The upper stage placed them in a delivery orbit at an altitude of approximately 290 kilometers, inclined at 43 degrees to the equator. Over the coming weeks, the satellites will use ion propulsion with argon to transfer to their operational orbit at an altitude of 530 kilometers. The newly launched satellites will join thousands of others deployed in previous years. The goal of the Starlink network is to provide high-speed internet access worldwide. Together with the current batch, more than 5,200 Starlink satellites, including test and verification satellites, have been launched. The Falcon 9's first stage was used for the 8th time, with its debut in November of the previous year. Besides the Starlink satellites, it has launched payloads such as the Dragon 2 cargo spacecraft as part of the CRS-26 mission, the Intelsat 40E satellite, and OneWeb satellites in recent months. This time, the first stage successfully landed on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. It marked SpaceX's 231st successful rocket stage landing overall, and the 157th consecutive one. On October 5th at 024 Universal Time, the Chinese Long March 2D rocket lifted off from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center. This rocket was headed for a 500-kilometer orbit inclined at 35 degrees to the equator. Its payload consisted of 3 Yaogan 39 satellites officially intended for Earth observation. The name Yaogan is used for various types of Chinese military satellites, including radar, optical, and signals intelligence satellites. Collecting electronic signals from terrestrial sources is likely the primary mission of this newly launched trio of satellites. The Long March 2D rocket is a two-stage vehicle that uses liquid propellants, specifically unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine and dinitrogen tetroxide. This rocket, weighing 232 tons at liftoff, made its debut in 1992 and has only failed once out of 81 launches. It can carry up to 3.5 tons of payload to low Earth orbit. Thank you for watching today's episode of Spaceflight News. The next episode will be released on Monday, October 9th. If you don't want to miss it, please consider subscribing. You can also find a link to our profile on the social network X, formerly known as Twitter, in the video description, where we share various interesting updates from the world of spaceflight.